Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Protection Insight podcast. Joining me today is Paul Shepherd. Paul is a key account manager over at Cirencester. So welcome to the podcast today, Paul. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks, Vincent. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Good. Now, this podcast is called Welcome to Cirencester. And I thought, really, just to get us started, Paul, could you tell me a little bit more about Cirencester Friendly as an organisation and perhaps what makes a friendly society a bit different from mainstream insurers?
Sure. Okay. Well, a good number of years ago now, 15, 16 years ago, that's when I first joined Cirencester Friendly. And at the time, I was looking for something a little bit different. And I was looking around the marketplace and I stumbled across Cirencester, and I didn't know that much at that time about friendly societies. And I just saw them as being very niche and doing things slightly differently to other companies out there. So, I mean, as a friendly society, for instance, we're a mutual, so we're member-owned, so we're for a non-for-profit organisation who are run for the benefit of the members. Yeah. Similarly, the Co-op are a well-known mutual as well, so I'm sure, a few people will associate with that. And as a friendly society, a proportion of our profits are given back to qualifying members of the society as well through profit participation. The rest is put back into the company to improve our financial security, along with improving contracts themselves through our member benefit options as well. So just a rounded sort of answer to that, very, very different, a good opportunity, and they do cover clients that perhaps more mainstream providers perhaps wouldn't be quite so happy covering, and maybe we'll come onto that a bit later on.
Well, actually, Paul, yeah, that's a good description to really what does make you a little bit different. And I was thinking, actually, if we think about the proposition that you have on the table itself, obviously for advisors who are watching this podcast today, could you give us an overview of what actually is available for advisors and maybe also the target markets that are typical to your products?
Sure. Well, in terms of being available to advisors, I'm part of the sales team. So we've got a team of account managers as well. So in terms of training, if they wanted some training on the contract or, underwriting or anything like that, then they can actually get some training through us. We can run webinars on a singular basis or a multiple basis, a group basis. In terms of how we're a little bit different to other providers out there, you tend to find that the friendly societies, they do specialise in certain sectors of the marketplace. And we certainly do. We find ourselves particularly competitive for clients in higher risk occupations, for instance. So I think most mainstream providers, where they apply occupational loadings for class 1, 2, 3 or 4 clients, we don't tend to do that. We tend to categorise everybody as being the same.
And of course, what you're talking about there, Paul, is income protection. So I've got a follow-on question, really, Paul. I hear that really you've got some slightly different approaches with regards to occupation, smoking, sports. Could you just explain what you actually do differently there?
Absolutely, yeah. So as I briefly touched upon a moment ago, Vincent, whereby some other providers might rate or load the client based on the job that they do, we look at everybody as being exactly the same in terms of the premium they pay. So for instance, somebody who works in an office would pay exactly the same premium as somebody who works offshore, for instance, on the oil rigs, or a tree surgeon above heights and that sort of thing. So we don't apply premium loadings based on the client's job or their occupation, which, for class 3 or 4 occupations means that we come out particularly competitively. Also, if the client smokes as well, normally with income protection or any form of sort of life cover, critical illness cover, that does increase the premiums quite notably. With ourselves, we don't apply premium loadings for smoking. So whereby a lot of other providers are applying loadings and we don't, there can be scenarios there where we come out very, very competitively indeed. Now as well, hazardous hobbies is a really interesting one. Now when I talk about hazardous hobbies and sports, I always really emphasise that this isn't sports cover and shouldn't really be promoted as such. So we don't actually load or exclude for hazardous sporting hobbies or interests at all. There's a criteria that we do look at, and that's based on the client's accident history over the last 3 years. And also if they get paid, if they do earn more than certain amounts, then unfortunately we wouldn't be able to cover them whilst they're participating in their sports. So it can be really attractive to clients who do, enjoy doing more adventurous things. And we get all sorts of different types of sports and hobbies, from mountaineering, to downhill mountain biking, motorcycling as well comes into it as well, certainly. So lots of different sports and aspects out there where, advisors do really find a niche for us. But it really must be emphasised that, it is income protection cover that happens to cover sports and hobbies and interests as well.
Yeah, superb. That's a good explanation there, Paul. And I hear that you've got a choice of guaranteed premiums. A choice of guaranteed premiums? What do you actually mean by that, Paul?
So in terms of premiums, all of our premiums are guaranteed. So we don't have reviewable premiums at all. So they're all guaranteed. And we have two premium types. We've got one whereby, say, for instance, an advisor's talking to a client and they're on a fairly tight budget. They may be looking for the cheapest premium available to them. So we have a guaranteed annually escalating premium. And that's where, Vincent, it starts off lower, but the premium does rise each year as the client gets older. We call it a guaranteed annually escalating premium because the premiums absolutely are guaranteed. We can't change them. So the client and the advisor can see exactly what those premiums will be throughout the lifetime of the contract. So that's our age costed increasing premium. We've also as well got a guaranteed level premium available as well. Now, we don't reserve that guaranteed level premium just for the lower risk occupations. Those guaranteed level premiums are available to all occupations that we do cover. So it's quite unusual to be able to cover a higher risk occupation, a class 3 or 4 occupation, without loading them for their occupation with a fixed guaranteed level premium. So I think it's great to have choice and flexibility when it comes to recommending and making advice to clients in terms of the premiums they pay. And we have both of those options available.
Fantastic. So that's what you mean by a choice of guaranteed premiums. Really good.
Indeed.
And I think you mentioned it at the very beginning, Paul, and I'll just come to this as we get to the end of the podcast. We're often talking about additional benefits these days that members get when they take out the cover. Obviously, Cirencester are no different, but can you just run through this, Paul?
I will do, Vincent. Yes, I mean, in terms of timings, I'm not going to have time to go through all of them, but I will just mention 2 or 3, which I think are particularly relevant to where we are at the moment in the midst of this pandemic that we still find ourselves in, unfortunately. Now, I'm not going to get away from not mentioning discounts that we have on Fiat vans, Vince. I know you've seen some of my presentations before, and I'm going to grasp the opportunity to mention this again, that through our member awards, which is something clients can enjoy when they join the society, they can get discounts in excess of 40% if they're looking to buy a brand new Fiat van. So that's certainly worth knowing about. Now, in terms of the ones particularly relevant to where we find ourselves at the moment, we've got Friendly Voice, a service provided through RedArc. So again, when clients are perhaps more not quite so keen on going to the doctor's GP surgery face-to-face at the moment, which is completely understandable, you know, that service is available to members and their spouse over the phone. And interestingly, 100% of people who've used those have given feedback of good or excellent. So it really, you know, shows that we are, you know, providing an excellent service through RedArc. We've also got Health Hero as well. Again, when clients are more concerned about maybe going to a GP surgery as well, there is an app where they can actually book their appointments. And we allow up to 4 consultations per year. And that can include consultations for partners and children as well. And it's a 24/7 access to fully qualified practicing GPs. So they're all fully qualified, the GPs that we use. And they can actually offer open referrals and fit notes and also private prescriptions as well. And they can be delivered to any UK address or a nominated pharmacy. And finally, the most recent benefit we've introduced is one called Your Halo. And that's available through phone and video consultation. And they have teams of highly qualified health professionals that can provide advice on things like good sleep, physical well-being, food and nutrition, and exercise and activity as well. So those are just a few things that clients get when they join Cirencester and become members, and they can actually enjoy those things along with a lot of other things there's not going to be time to mention.
Fantastic. Well, I think, as we said, the podcast was called Welcome to Cirencester. It's a little taster as to what you do. So we'll get into a bit more of the detail on some of those things in a future podcast, I guess, Paul. So thank you very much, Paul, for joining us today. Really good to go through that. And hopefully that's given advisors watching this a nice insight as to exactly what a friendly society is and, of course, what you do over at Cirencester. So thank you to you advisors for tuning in. And until next time, it's bye for now.
Thank you.